Hello and welcome to Story Untold. I'm Martin Bowen, and my guest today is a man who has come a long way in life. He also happens to be a friend. I met him a couple years back when I was putting on a charity concert for Unity, and he came out and performed. Wali Shah is Mississauga's poet laureate. He's a spoken word artist and motivational speaker. He's performed at the Air Canada Centre and raised over $1 million for United Way. But before any of that, he was a 15-year-old kid spending the night in a jail cell, wondering where he'd gone wrong. This interview was recorded just after the violence in Charlottesville, and we talk about race and identity and belonging, and how a kid turns struggle into something beautiful. Here's his story. Wali, you are a spoken word artist, an MC, a motivational speaker. I'm sure the list can go on and on. You're a university student right now as well. What came first for you of all of those different things that make up who you are?
Basically what came first was just my artistry. I've always been writing. I used to write raps before I came into spoken word poetry. Actually, I loved artists like Eminem and stuff like that. And so when I was like 12 years old, I picked up a pen and pencil and a pad, and I just started writing raps, and it's never been the same since. I just fell in love with it. I wanted to do something with it, but now I guess I've just been able to put more of a comprehensive picture as to what exactly that looks like. But the art definitely came first.
First of all, who introduced you to hip hop? Usually it comes from somebody, whether it's an older relative or your friend. Somebody plays you a CD or a song, and it changes things for you.
Yeah, so I had like two really good friends back when I was younger. My buddy Cash and my buddy Saf, and we were like, I don't know, we were just like little kids growing up in Mississauga, you know. And when I was growing up here, I mean, I knew what rap was, like I knew who 50 Cent was and stuff, but I didn't really listen to, like, you know, more of the underground and more of the legends and stuff. It was just kind of like what was on the radio at the time, you know. Tupac wasn't on the radio at the time. I didn't know who Tupac was until these guys showed me. I didn't know who, some of the classic, like Biggie or Big Al, any of these guys. I didn't even know who, Eminem was until these guys showed me. So I kind of give them kudos for sort of breaking the ice in terms of what hip hop and rap was. Because, I don't know. Maybe it would have been someone else down the road, but those guys did it, you know?
And right away you go to picking up a pencil and a pad and jotting your own lyrics, or when did that happen?
Well, it wasn't right away. I think for me it was probably about a year or two before I actually did that. First, I'm like, man, these guys are talking so fast, you know? Like I'm like a 10-year-old kid, and I'm trying to like just catch up with what they're saying in the lyrics, you know? And there was no like lyricalgenius.com back then. Like you had to like listen for everything, you know? And so when I'm like 12 years old, we have this program in our middle school where every other Friday we would just have like personal activity time. So there wasn't any classes like for the Friday afternoons every other week. We could do whatever we wanted. And so one of the activities that I signed up for was like a hip hop club. And like the club was like, anybody in the school that wanted to like learn about hip hop could learn about hip hop. And there was this really cool teacher. Her name was Miss Me. She still teaches at that school. She would like play beats for us, and like kids would like write poetry or write raps, or some people would like go on a computer and they learn like how to produce using a keyboard. And it was super cool. Like schools don't even do that stuff anymore, but it was such a cool thing. And that's when I first wrote rap music. I remember it was in that little activity period thing that we did. Yeah, and ever since then I was like, maybe I'm gonna keep doing this, you know?
Do you remember your first lines that you jotted down? Do you have that saved somewhere?
Oh my gosh. Martin, honestly, I don't. I probably don't want to look back at it. It was probably
no, you probably don't.
probably something so silly and stupid, but hey man, we all start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were born in Pakistan. When did you actually come to Canada then? Was it very early on, or do you have memories of being in Pakistan?
Yeah, I came to Canada when I was like 3 years old, so my memory is quite faint. I've been back only twice, and I was a kid. I was like 9 years old when I went back, so I don't really remember much. But with that being said, in recent years, I've tried to find more pride in embracing my identity and who I am. I think that's very important. And before, I wasn't always very proud to be South Asian, kind of like an uncool like it just didn't I didn't feel like it was something that was really worth being proud of. People used to make fun of me for it and stuff. Like, I don't know, it was kind of like a blemish almost, like my personality. And only recently I've kind of come to really accept it and be proud of it.
What was it for your family that sparked the move? Did you have family already in Canada that had arrived and you were joining them?
Yeah.
How did it go down?
Yeah, so a lot of my family was already here in Canada, and my parents wanted to give me a better education and a better future, which I'm very thankful for, because I'm very proud to be Canadian, and this country is filled with so many great, wonderful opportunities and wonderful people like yourself, Martin. And and yeah, that was kind of the story since we moved to Toronto. So when I first came to Canada, we were in Toronto, the North York area, and we moved to Mississauga when I was like 8, 9 years old, and we've been here ever since.
You have mentioned in your TEDx talk that you did in Thunder Bay, you mentioned kids calling you a coconut. You talked about,
Yeah.
taking a while to become proud of your South Asian heritage. What was that like? What were you hearing from kids around you at the time, being a kid, 6, 7 years old, just getting into
Yeah.
schools?
Well, you know what? Like, kids, I mean, how do I put it? Kids are just immature, right? They don't know anything. They don't know any better. So, whatever's funny, they'll just start making fun of you for or whatever they think is funny. You know what I mean? You're the kid that has like a weird haircut. You get called a mushroom for the rest of the year. You're that kid that's a little chubby, a little overweight. You get made fun of all year. It's just how kids are, and they're ruthless. So there was kind of no mercy. Whatever you could find to pick someone on, you just did it. And I'm guilty of that too, as a younger guy. And it's also kind of the pop culture, the way that it influences us. It sort of tells us that it's okay or it's cool to make fun of other people. It's cool to be the class clown. It's cool to kind of to pass your judgment on others. You know what I mean? And so that was kind of like a consistent theme growing up. But when you get older, when you're in university and college, you start looking back and you're like, man, that was so silly. Like,
Yeah.
it's a childish thing. But I've learned a lot from it, because back then it kind of made me feel like I wasn't good enough. But now it's like, this is part of who I am, and I got to embrace it.
Did you have a problem eating coconuts from that experience, or are you okay with them?
Oh man. No, man, I love coconuts. I love coconut water. That's so funny.
That would be a shame. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, another thing that you mentioned is in that same TEDx talk, I think it was, hurt people, right? That idea that people that lash out onto somebody else's insecurities are oftentimes covering up their own insecurities, or they're trying to pass on whatever they're feeling onto somebody else. When did you come to realize that?
Well, I think, there was a very specific event in my life that kind of showed me that, and I talk about it in my TED talk. It was when when someone threw coffee on my mom Christmas time 2 years ago, and it was so disgusting. It was so appalling, and nothing like that ever happened to me or my family here in Canada. We've been blessed to live in an amazing country. Things like that are very rare occurrences for the most part. But when that did happen, it just kind of got me thinking about the world, man. Like, why would anyone want to do something so so immature, so stupid? Like, an innocent lady that hasn't done anything to you. Why would you do something like that, right? So it got me thinking about some of the reasons, some of the causes that people act on things like that. And one of the reasons that I feel like it's just people have their own insecurities about whatever their problems were. Maybe those kids that not kids, but anyone really, maybe someone that gets called a certain name or gets discriminated against now feels like they have to lash out to make it okay. You know what I mean? Like, to cope with what they're dealing with, they have to hurt someone else. And that's kind of what I was trying to refer to. And I think it's true. It happens all the time, especially especially in schools, right? Like in high school, you see so many kids that end up getting bullied and picked on, and the victim ends up lashing out. You know, it's what we got so many situations of mental health in schools as well.
What was your initial gut or instinctual reaction hearing your mom, and you come back from home and you hear what happened to her? What did
Yeah.
that spark in you?
And I was shocked more than anything. You know, I was just really shocked that something like this could happen in, you know, Mississauga, because there's so many different people of so many different walks of life in Mississauga. And more so than that, it's like the impact that it had on my mom hurt me a lot, because she felt that, you know, she couldn't leave her house because she was scared something like that was going to happen again, you know? Although we tried to reassure her that nothing like that would ever happen again, and nothing has happened like that ever again. But just a psychological effect that it had on my mom was, it was a little rattling, you know, like, and I didn't, I didn't know what to do in that situation. I wasn't very well informed or equipped in terms of how to deal with a situation like that, you know. So that's kind of where that went. But I think one of the positives that I can take from all this is that I was able to write about it. I was able to share this experience with other people, so that you know, we can have these conversations about these difficult things, because sometimes it's hard to have a conversation about discrimination. It's hard to have a conversation about, you know, your identity as a Muslim, or even whatever your identity is. You know what I mean? So I wanted to spark that conversation. I wanted to use my art to make a difference about it.
I mean, today and this week feels like as relevant time as ever for those same
Yeah,
sorts of conversations.
with everything that's happening in
And
Charlottesville. Yeah.
yeah, how do you feel just as a human being? How do you feel about what you see and what's going on around us?
Did you see the video? The video that the TMZ
Uh,
leaked?
so no, I haven't. Oh, well, depends on the video, but the footage that got me is just seeing a car driving into people,
Yeah.
and
So
how that
that
could
so
somebody
this
could do that.
yeah. So this guy, he's not even like a grown man. He's like 20 years old. He's still a kid, and you know, and relatively speaking, takes the hefty car and he drives it into a whole bunch of people. Like, you have to have some serious psychological issues to do that.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? People that you don't even know, that haven't done anything to you, you feel so strongly to go and do something like that. Like, that's ridiculous. And the comments that Trump made almost made it okay, you know.
Hmm.
Like, he talked about these issues happening on many sides, you know what I'm saying? And like, I understand his point, but at the same time, like, you're not saying anything to condemn people that are doing things like that. Like, that's kind of, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, you know. So my heart and my prayers go out to people in Charlottesville. I think we need to start thinking critically about the kind of people that are in our world and how we're going to deal with them. And if we have people like Donald Trump as our president, I don't think we're going to solve anything right now.
Hmm.
Not that I'm American, I'm very proud to be Canadian, but for the people that do live in America, my friends and family included, I think they got their hands full, really.
Hmm. That comment, about the the extremes on both sides, I think that struck with me because that's something that a lot of the time I think people want to be politically correct and they don't want to be attacking one side or the other, and so it's safer to say, we have the extremes on the right and on the left. But
Yeah.
sometimes the one extreme is a lot worse than the other, and I think we fail ourselves when we don't call those people out.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I understand what he's saying with that comment. Like, I know that, you know, unfortunate things happen from every side of every argument. People,
Hmm.
you know, whether they're white supremacists or black supremacists, there's people that do wrong things everywhere. It's not that we should be thought. Like, I don't think it's about talking about the sides. I think what he should have done is address the actual situation. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, here's someone that made a mistake. There are people that are injured and someone lost their life. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it was the wrong comment. Like, there's a lot more to be said about condemning the violence of that one person and of any extremist group. But I don't know. Anyways, I
Yeah.
digress, man.
Yeah, yeah. It could be a whole other conversation. You have been a face for the Bell Let's Talk campaign, a face for mental health. How has mental health shaped your life?
Well, for a large part of my career as an artist and as a young person, I always felt like I didn't know where my place was, you know. And when I was younger, when I was in my high school years, I had a lot of friends that weren't the best examples or influences in my life, and part of that was just trying to be cool, a young kid that wanted to fit in and be popular and just just have a good time in high school kind of thing, And I ended up making some wrong friends, and uh, basically in March of 2009, when I was in high school, I got arrested for assault charges, and that's when mental health kind of really started hitting me in terms of the impacts of depression and anxiety. Because I remember thinking like, I let my parents down. My parents came from Pakistan to Canada to give their kid an education and a future, and I let my parents down. And I felt really bad about myself, and I felt bad about the situation. And for a long time, it kind of stayed with me. But again, like I said before, I've always been able to take a positive from every situation. And the positive that I took from that situation was that I want to use this experience as a way to fuel my future work in terms of advocating for kids that are at risk, or advocating for young men that have the wrong perception of what masculinity is, which makes them make decisions that can be life altering. You know what I mean? I was lucky that I was a kid and I had my charges dropped. If I was older and I decided to make a stupid decision, anything could have gone wrong for me, and the consequences would have been so much more severe. So that's kind of how the mental health element ties in. But again, there's always a positive to every situation. You just got to be willing to look at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. For you, was it a realization that depression and anxiety were things that you were dealing with already leading up to that night, or was that something that came after that in the feeling that you let your parents down and feeling like, how did I get into this place?
I mean, I think to a certain degree both, but I think it was more so after the fact. It was, man, it was hard, being a kid, and the officer's got you pinned to a car and he's putting cuffs behind on your wrists, and you're in the back of a police cruiser and there's like a meter of space and you're like suffocating. You can't even breathe properly, and then you go to the station and they make you take your clothes off and they put you in a cell. Like that's a very scary thing. Even when I think back at it now, I'm like, I actually went through that when I was 15 years old. I wouldn't want any.
Really, right?
I wouldn't want anyone to go through that, because that's especially a kid. That's a very scary feeling. But the unfortunate truth is that there are a lot of kids that are going through these situations, and the situations that are even worse than that situation. And if I can be a catalyst in trying to help kids that are in situations like that, if I can do something through my art to save those kids, then that's like, I feel like that's my calling. You know what I mean?
You've mentioned this before to other people. The look on your mom's face, the thing that really kind of hit and sunk in for you, that made you want to get out of that became a catalyst for you to turn things around and turn it into a positive. What was that look like as you are getting taken away?
I think the hardest part was just hearing my mom just yell while I was in the car. She's basically saying, where's my son going? Give me my son back. And I just remember I was trying to look at her face, but the space in the back of the car is so tight that I try to turn my head, and I can't really fully turn my head. And that was just a really bad feeling, And more than anything, that's what I thought about that night when I was in that cell. That I got my mom who loves me, who cares about me, and I've really let her down. And not just her, but I have two younger siblings, and I've let them down as an older brother that they should be looking up to as a mentor and as a role model. So I think in summary, that's kind of what I took from that whole situation. You know what I mean?
Were you in a cell by yourself, or were you sharing it with somebody? What was your surroundings like?
Yeah, no, I was by myself. I was alone. I guess it was a quiet night for them, so there wasn't a lot of people. There was someone that they brought in, but they kind of put him so he wasn't interfering with me. Some drunk guy for some reason. I don't really remember the details. It was a long time ago, but yeah, man, like, yeah, it was just me. It was a tough night. I mean, what else can I say?
Yeah, sleepless night, a hard one to get some rest.
One of those, man. One of those, yeah.
You had a teacher that gave you a book, The Rose That Grew from Concrete.
Yeah.
Tell me about the effect of that book on you.
So that's a book written by my man Tupac,
Mm.
Tupac Shakur, one of the legends in hip hop. And a lot of people don't know this, but he's a poet as well as a rap artist. And that book was a book of his poetry that he wrote. And when I never knew that poetry and rap were connected in any way. You know what I mean? I never thought they would ever be related in any regard. So when I picked this up, I was like, wow, like that's crazy. And it came at a very important time in my life where I was dealing with these struggles. So as you can imagine, a young kid like that going through some hard times gets a book like this, starts thinking about, I mean, I love rap music. Maybe I can, take a stab at writing and doing poetry. And so I did. And what resulted out of all that was just the opportunity to share my story and share my narrative through a poem. And so now I use poetry to talk to kids all over North America, really, about social issues, things like diversity, Islamophobia, mental health, bullying. It's kind of just, that's the spark. That's what started it all. So I have to give kudos to my teacher, Miss Riley. I met up with her like last weekend. We caught up after a long time. So, I had someone that really cared, man.
You've been on a lot of stages and spoken to a lot of peers since then, but there was a moment for you after getting in that book when you went up in front of your class to recite one of your poems. Take me to that moment, the feeling as you're going up to the front of the class and sharing something very personal to you.
Dude, holy, every step was a mountain in that situation, just because I was so nervous, I was so scared. I thought people were gonna think I was weird, but I just had this voice in my head that said, you gotta do this. You really gotta do this. And so I mustered up every ounce of courage that I had in my body, and I said, let's go. And I did it, and the response was incredible because I had so many people that I didn't even know. They were just in my class in high school that just came up to me and they said so many kind words, like, "Yo, that was brave. That was important for you to share. Like, we appreciate you. Like, you're not alone." So hearing that as a young man, taking a step like that was very, very important.
And what grade was this for you?
That was grade 11.
11. Okay, yeah.
That was a youngin', man.
How quickly after that do you start getting in front of, because that's got to be a powerful feeling. How quickly after that do you start getting other chances to speak in front of people and continue to tell your story?
Well, professionally, it took a few years, but in terms of just like performing at open mics and working with my homies at Unity and, just doing stuff in the community that was like very small scale kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I started doing stuff like right after that year. Like in grade 12, I was volunteering. I was working with the Arts Council in Mississauga and all that stuff. And a lot of it was like small scale stuff, but it was enough to just get me started and just get me thinking about, okay, is this something I want to pursue? Is it a hobby? Is it something that I share? And I came to the conclusion that I wanted to put my eggs in this basket and take it professionally. And now, by the grace of God, I've been able to travel all over this beautiful country and perform my art and do what I love, So yeah, it's become a business now, So it's kind of cool that way.
What came first for you? Was it United Way or was it Unity and your involvement there?
Oh man, Unity was way before United Way. United Way was like when I was in like first year university. Unity was something I was involved with in high school. Like there were festivals and stuff I've been going to ever since I was like 17 years old. So they're one of the first people to kind of take me on as an artist and give me a platform and give me mentors and give me an opportunity. So yeah, man, those guys from Unity do good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Take me to a really special moment for you. You're backstage at We Day. Kendrick Lamar is right there next to you, and you guys kick a freestyle together. What's that moment like? Your heart rate, the goosebumps. What are you feeling?
Man, I still feel so excited just like thinking about it, because Kendrick is one of the kings of hip hop right now, and I love who he is as a person, and just the fact that he was willing to spit some raps with me was insane. If that was any other artist, they probably would have said no. But just how genuine he is and how cool of a person he is, he's like, yo, let's do it. And in the moment, I I couldn't feel anything. I was so focused on trying to compose myself. I couldn't feel anything. But the second I walked away and like, we went back to our dressing room kind of thing, man, I was like jumping up and down. I was like yelling at the top of my lungs, like, I just freaking did that, It was crazy. And just the fact that it was captured on YouTube on video just made it so much more special because I could look back at it and just share it with my friends, So dope, bro. So dope.
You got to raise $1 million. You've raised over $1 million for United Way.
Yeah.
How did your involvement with United Way start?
Yeah, so it started when I was in university. I started volunteering with them, and I started talking about giving back to the community. I talked about my story, and I talked about how it's important that we give kids like me just an opportunity to stay away from trouble. And United Way was so moved by it, and they put me in front of all of their, like, literally all the top corporations that you could think of. Like they put me in front of them, and they said, you'd be a great representative for United Way to talk to these corporate organizations. And again, when we think about funding and stuff, it's the corporate organizations that have the big dollars to actually make it happen. So my part in it, I have to admit, was really small in terms of organizing everything, in terms of getting me in front of the people and the people having the money to make the contributions. That was all United Way. What I just did was I got up on the stage and I tried to make them feel empowered enough to share some of what they have in terms of monetary value. You know what I mean? So yeah, and it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over the course of 2-3 years. But I'm very proud of that, and I'm really glad I was able to make a contribution towards my community. You know what I mean?
You've been named Mississauga's Poet Laureate, and that's a position that'll last for a couple of years. How did that announcement come about? Because it's a nomination process, right? So somebody nominates you for that. How do you find out about that happening, and what has it led to since?
Yeah, so basically my buddy Jim Tovey, who's Ward 1 in Mississauga, he's a city councilor. He's kind of been involved in my work ever since I was trying to rap back then, and he I don't know, man, he just hit me up on Facebook, and he's like, we got to get you as Poet Laureate. And I was like, I really don't think I'm good enough. I haven't been a poet long enough. And he's like, just go for it. And so he nominated me. I was kind of reluctant, but I went for it. And I was actually sitting at Pearson Airport. I was going to go to do a school tour in Saskatchewan, and I got the call, and they're like, hey, you've been selected. And I was like, what? Like, you guys, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And then I was so overjoyed, just a chance to represent Saga. I mean, growing up here and having a position like this in my hometown, and then just thinking about the opportunities. I got a chance to perform at Celebration Square for Canada Day. There was like 10,000 people there. It's nuts, man. Like, I'm super grateful, and now I get to work with the city on some of the projects they want me to write. Some poems on certain initiatives they're doing. So it's cool, man. Keeps me busy.
That Celebration Square thing's pretty cool. I mean, from coming to Canada, being the kid who gets bullied for being a foreign kid, fast forward and you are the representative, the face of Canada Day for your city, Mississauga.
Yeah.
10,000 people there plus, watching you and listening to you deliver the thing that you're so passionate about. What's that moment like?
That's nuts, man. It's a dream come true. That's all it is. That's all I can say, man. I mean, all of this, not just that. Kendrick, and doing school presentations, doing interviews like this with my boy Martin. Everything like this is a dream come true, because I had every strike against me. So even the fact that we're talking about this right now, it's my dream, man. That's all I can say,
What has poetry taught you about yourself in expressing yourself through verse and in writing your feelings?
I think two very, very simple things. That one, I shouldn't be afraid of what anyone has to say. Poetry has been the reason that I've been able to make a difference in people's lives and in my community. And second, it's taught me that there's always an opportunity for me to release my stress through my art, you know. So not only am I making a difference, which is number one, but I'm coping with everything that's happening in my life, you know. And that's why I try to tell these kids to go find their passion, to find whatever makes them happy, whether it's shooting a basketball or writing rap lyrics or dancing. It's because you can make a difference through your art, and you can just cope with everything that's happening. So that's probably the two main things that it's taught me.
This is something that you tweeted, I think, and it was a while ago, but it struck me. You mentioned that you came to realize that all of your struggles were the biggest blessings in your life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. Is that the fact that all this is a dream? You know, it's just I had every strike against me, and I never thought that I'd get here. But the fact that I am here, the fact that I've had people help me so much and give me an opportunity and a platform to get me to where I'm at, I think that's kind of where that tweet kind of stemmed from, because I was thinking back to my life and just where I've been and what I've gone through, and here I am now, you know. So they've kind of helped me. They kind of helped shape who I am. They've through the struggles, I've gotten a lot of mentors, and you know, that if I didn't have the struggles, I also wouldn't be able to appreciate all the blessings now. You know what I mean? So so it kind of serves that purpose.
What we haven't talked about yet, you've mentioned before how to you the part of the dream is to be an educator, to get back into classrooms and to inspire again those same sorts of kids that you get to talk to all the time. What is the ultimate goal for you, and how do you see a classroom? Why is a classroom the dream for you?
Just because it's such a great way to connect with kids, you know. Like I've always felt passionate about helping kids. I mean, I'm an older brother, so you know, I've always tried to be a mentor for the younger generation in that regard too. But more importantly, I've just had great teachers, man. Like I had Miss McIntosh, who I call Tosh, and Miss Riley, the teacher who gave me the Tupac book. And they've just been such great role models for me that I was like, man, if these two amazing teachers, Miss McIntosh and Miss Riley, can make a difference like this in my life, then I want to be like Miss McIntosh. I want to be like Miss Riley. I want to make a difference in one kid's life in the future. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm so passionate about going to schools and doing what I do. You know, I'm sure if I tried hard enough, man, I could have been rapping about girls and money and drugs and all that mainstream stuff that people seem to really like nowadays. But I chose not to. I chose not to invest my time into that because I know that my calling is greater. You know what I mean? Why would I settle for something just because there's more money in it when I could be doing something that I know is going to fulfill my soul, you know?
You know, one thing I'd like to end with is a spoken word piece of yours. If you're up for it, if you can think of whether it's one that's particularly meaningful to you that you've written before, or one that just seems appropriate to you based on your catalog. Are you game for that?
Yeah, I'm game. And that kind of leads into what I'm about to share with you too. This is actually a verse. Like it's a verse, and I kind of wrote it when I was a little upset, but I was thinking about the struggle, and I was thinking about what I went through and how it shaped me. So I think this verse kind of really sets up everything we talked about very well. I think it's perfect. So yeah, you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right, cool. It's been a minute since I've written, but I think I've really grown. Learned the ropes with hopes to make it on my own. Since King of the Castle, they wonder where I've gone. And when I rap with Kendrick, I really should have blown. I realized you can't be sitting waiting on the dream. You gotta make a way, cause finding one's too mainstream. And that ain't me, that ain't Wali, the kid who used to write raps in classic CP. The kid who had dreams to act on TV. The kid who got jumped for his MP3. And now these dudes envy me, cause they heard Selena say my name on MTV. And I don't care if this is music you won't dance to or like. It's the type of thing I vibe to alone at night. And you'll hardly catch me cussing. Tosh taught me better. Plus I'd rather have all of my thoughts together. Stay positive, and I spoke the truth. Wanted to give back, so I spoke to you. Told him my story and that nothing's impossible. Believe in God and maneuver through the obstacles. That's my verse right there.
Man.
Yeah,
That's
no problem, man.
Incredible. Thank you. It's really nice to catch up to you again. It was 3 years ago in 2 days' time. 3 year anniversary from that day.
I remember that, man. I remember that day in London. That was so dope, man. Thank you for having me out that day, bro.
Hey, well, it's a special day for me, and I appreciate you being a part of it, and appreciate the person that you've become today,
Thanks, man.
and all the best to you.
Thanks, man. I'm glad we kept in touch. Thanks for doing this interview, brother.
That's it for the show. Thanks for listening, and I hope you liked it. Wali's voice alone should have been reason enough to listen, but man, super inspiring guy. If you want to know more about him or take a look at his public speaking, head to waliflowshaw.com. And if you like the show, do me a favor, hit subscribe and share it with someone else. This is episode 16. And there are a lot of other episodes worth checking out and more on the way. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher. It's also coming to YouTube. A couple episodes are there already. Theme music for the show is by Dr. Turtle off the album You I'll Ah. Once again, I'm Martin Bauman, and this was A Story Untold. See you next time.